Hey guys, how's it going? Value Venture Investing here today. So today we're going to be talking about the Tesla CyberTruck event. Now I wanted to wait a couple days to make this video because I was very divided on this. I had an initial response and now I've kind of changed my mind. So I'll get to those thoughts towards the end of the video. But what the video is essentially going to be about is a quick recap of what the event was. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts, and then I'm going to give you some ending thoughts as well. Not so well received in the market as of Friday. The stock was down over 6%. I think I probably know why it was down so much. It was a bit of a shocker for the markets, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward here during this week. So let's get right into the event here. So as usual, you know, Elon likes to put on a nice show. This was probably visually the most interesting event that I'd ever seen. It started with the lights going everywhere. Really cool futuristic vibe. This part was a little bit strange here. We had this kind of, you know, android girl come on the screen here and talk a little bit about the future, like now's the future, and then she introduced Elon to the crowd, and then of course Elon comes out and he's kind of got the futuristic vibe going on. I really like how he started this presentation because he's talked about 100 years of the same kind of truck, and this is one thing that really resonated with me because I've always thought the same thing. I'll give you my thoughts on this actual truck once we get into that, but I've always thought, why doesn't anybody try anything a little different? You go through all these different forms you can see here of vehicles, and you know, they all pretty much look the same. It was all the same sort of, you know, low risk taking body style, and I can see that that's definitely Elon's thoughts on this. Then he shows the three trucks here, and he basically says, you know, they're really hard to tell the difference between. And you know, I do agree with that. And he's saying that this year there was, you know, over 1.5 million of them sold. So he's trying to talk about the addressable market. And this is obviously the hope that the market had, that they're going to be able to compete on this level. I think that this was a little bit of a disappointment though, once the unveiling of the Cybertruck actually came out, because it was completely different than what most people thought. This writing on the back was pretty crazy. Just this, I could barely read. It was really going for a futuristic look, and then the vehicle came out and it was like, when I first saw this vehicle, I thought to myself, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. What the hell is happening? I should have sold my shares. Then we see these guys get out that we look like we're straight out of the Matrix. I'm just waiting for, you know, Morpheus to come out of the back, especially this black guy here in this outfit. It's the most futuristic show that I've ever seen, but I thought it was kind of cool. And I thought that this truck from the side actually looked pretty good. So, you know, they all walk off screen, and the first thing that Elon goes into is the dimensions. And he's saying essentially, I mean, he's a little bit contradictory here, but he's saying it has the same dimensions as the F-150, but then he said it was kind of in a smaller frame. So you can see the dimensions that were on screen here. The key point though, it had 6 seats and a 6.5 foot bed, so that definitely beats out the competition for sure. Another really notable thing that I took note of, and I'm sure everybody else did, is that this is built differently than all the other trucks out there. Most other trucks out there are body on frame, and Elon explained this. This is an exoskeleton. So instead of, you know, you have the strong steel frame in the middle, this, they're building the high strength steel, I believe it is, on the outside of the vehicle. And of course they had to demonstrate this. So the chief design officer came out here with a sledgehammer, and so they were marketing this as ultra hard, 30 times cold rolled. And he, as you can see, he smashes the side of this, you know, traditional pickup truck door, and it crumples, and then he goes over to the Tesla and smashes the door. He actually does it twice, and really impressive to see that it's not denting. I think the look kind of looks cool. I mean, maybe people will want it painted, and hopefully it comes in matte black. It looks like it's going to, but that's pretty cool in itself, although that raises one question in my mind about safety features, but we'll get to that in the end of the video. Then Elon basically says, well, what else can we do to this vehicle? It was kind of like this whole presentation was kind of on a whim. And then he says, well, why don't we shoot it? Obviously, they don't do it on stage, but he's saying that this is a bulletproof door for a 9mm will not even pierce it, whereas, traditional other doors of vehicles are not bulletproof. Then we got onto the armored glass, they call it, which is a transparent metal. So this is where things kind of went sideways, as I'm sure you know already. They first showed these, futuristic looking people here that look like they're from their Matrix, dropping balls on the glass from various heights. He's going higher and higher, and so from here it appears like it's it's very strong, and people are quite amazed. But then it almost seems unscripted. This is kind of some of the strange things about this. Elon says, well, why don't you throw this metal ball at it? And he says that to the chief design officer, and the guy kind of says, are you sure? I don't know if that was scripted or not, but he says, are you sure? And he throws it, and of course, as we know by now, the front window actually doesn't go through, but it shatters. They do it again, and again the back window shatters. So obviously this is the joke of the internet right now. I'd be very surprised if you haven't heard of it already. If you haven't, yeah, I would recommend watching it just because it's quite the thing to see. But Tesla, or Elon rather, he deals with it quite well. But then he says, backstage we were throwing everything at this. We were throwing everything we could possibly find, even the kitchen sink. But then that kind of led to the question. I'm thinking, well, if you're going to take this out on stage right before you present it and you're trying to break the glass, that makes no sense to me. What if you broke the glass? Why would you be doing it backstage beforehand? I thought that was kind of strange. So some people were speculating that this was a publicity stunt in itself. I don't know about that, but it definitely was kind of strange. I found a lot of things a little strange in this presentation. Then he goes in to say that it has adaptive air suspension standard, and it has the highest clearance of any vehicle. Now, this I'm kind of a little bit think it's positive and negative. I'm not a truck guy myself, but I know many people who do have trucks, and a lot of them have steered away from this adaptive air suspension, as it doesn't have the capability to hold these payloads without the vehicle squatting down too much. Now, I don't know if this is the case for Tesla, because he was saying that it can be adjusted for the amount of tension sort of thing as well. So that remains to be seen, but it definitely has huge benefits in terms of being able to raise and lower the vehicle. On the highway, you're going to greatly increase your economy, as in the distance you're going to get on the battery, because you can go lower, and then when you're going off-road, this thing can be a monster. It can basically just be lifted right up. Again, here they talk about there being lockable interior storage, but they also say that the payload is 3,500 pounds, so that's huge. He also states that it tows 14,000 pounds, and that, of course, is much more than the competitor, and he liked to compare this to the best-selling US truck, the F-150, and I love this video that came up here. Now, it shows the two trucks having a tug-of-war, and I actually really like this because you can see the two next to each other, and it really kind of makes the Ford look like old technology. I mean, the Tesla looks just so futuristic. And of course, the Tesla pulls the F-150, and it wasn't flat, it was actually uphill, so that made it even more dramatic as well. So he's talking about the on-road performance of it. He's saying it goes to 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. So again, that's a huge thing that the target market is going to be looking for, and they actually race a Porsche, and it beats it. I'm not a big fan of the look of the back of this thing or the front of it. I think that it looks pretty cool from the side, but the back and the front, those are the parts that I'm really having difficulty with. And then we got into the range, anywhere from 250 miles to 500 miles. So that's 500 miles, that's about 800 kilometers if you're looking in kilometers. And that is phenomenal. So that's going to be definitely class leading, I would say, over some of the competitors that are coming out like Rivian, and who knows what the electric F-150 will have. Another amazing feature, of course, is the superchargers, and we have 14,000 plus. But another huge thing would be the 110 volt and 220 volt onboard outlets as well as an board air compressor. So in terms of people who are actually using their truck, that's massive. But I don't know if this thing is going to be completely geared towards that, so I'll get into that. Of course, the biggest thing here, which is it was starting at under 40 grand. That's crazy. And it goes up to, I believe, $70,000. But then I'm also looking at this going, how are they going to make money on this thing? We're so worried about margins and everything with Tesla. This is so preliminary. But, you know, that's a positive, but very concerning at the same time. And then it came on screen here where he shows a single motor rear wheel drive. Sorry, I can't talk tonight. The dual motor and also the tri-motor. And you can pause the screen here if you want to see this. But again, they range from $39,900 to $69,900. So very, very competitive pricing. Then he talks about at the end, I mean, it seems like this whole thing was scripted. He goes, you know, you can reserve now at tesla.com/cybertruck. But then another thing is it's only $100, and I realize that this is a reservation, but I mean, what kind of money is that going to bring in for production? Not much at all. So that I found another strange as well. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments here, guys, but I seem to think that they're usually a bit more than that, so I found that a little strange. Then again, as I said, it was very kind of unscripted. He walks off stage and says, well, we kind of have, you know, one other thing here. What is this other thing? Well, we built an ATV, and he didn't say much else other than that. So the speculation now is whether they'll sell this ATV as well. We have no idea. There's so many gaps in information here that it's just bizarre to me. And here's where you can actually see the bed of the truck, and it's actually covered, which is really cool. The sides are high, and also he mentioned that, you know, when the ATV is in the back of this, it's charging already. And I don't know what that means if the guy hooked it up, how it's happening. Again, not a lot of information, but the concern I have with this bed is that the sides are so high. Now, for people that need this truck for utility, I don't know if they're going to like that. Like I said, I'm not a truck guy. Leave a comment down below. But for a lot of jobs, that just doesn't work. And it looks really cool that you can, you know, store things in there. Love it, get it. But I don't think this is targeted for a lot of the heavy-duty truck guys. Of course, after, I think it was a day after the event occurred, Tesla suggested that about 200,000 pre-orders for the Cybertruck. So there was an article here, I think it was about 146,000 for the Cybertruck. And then, so they're stating about 200,000, and I believe that was about $800 billion, $8 billion, in revenue for the company. So I'm mixed on this as well. I mean, it was just like a day later, so that sounds pretty impressive, but at the same time, it's not anything that's really going to move the needle too much. So I told you guys that I was really divided on this. I changed my mind. I changed my mind because my first thought of this was, this is stupid. What the hell? Like, why did they do this? But I really gave it a lot of thought, and I thought about the marketing aspect of it, who it's targeting, and I really don't think that this is going to be a threat for the big three truck makers in the US. I think that this is actually going to become popular. I really do. More of a niche product. You're going to see celebrities driving it around, people like that, and also maybe for off-roading enthusiasts as well. But I think it will do very well, but in its own way, right? And I think that that's why we're seeing a bit of a shock in the market right now in terms of what the expectations were. Some of the negatives, like I said, that bed, I'm still stuck on that bed. Let me know what you think on that. I'm stuck on the air suspension and the deposit. And I love the fact that it has an extremely strong exoskeleton, but how is that going to impact in terms of safety? There's usually crumple zones, there's pedestrian crumple zones and stuff like that. So if the thing is that rigid, it's like a tank, which is cool, how are they going to deal with that with regulators? I have no idea. And probably my biggest concern is, of course, the variety of products that they have now. I'm just thinking to myself, think of the trouble that they had with the Model 3, scaling that to production. The next thing is the Y, which is arguably, and I think will sell better than all the other vehicles. Elon himself says better than all of them combined. But then we also have the Semi, which is going to be a huge logistics problem for Tesla. Then we have the Roadster, which is a performance vehicle. Now we have the truck as well. And so they're saying this is going to go into production in late 2022. I would expect it much later than that. So we might see some design iterations before that happens. In terms of positives though, I mean, the range on this thing, the fact that it's actually a unique design. I don't like the front, I don't like the back. Maybe they can change that a bit. That's what makes it look really stupid in my opinion. But it's finally nice to see somebody challenge the status quo and make something different. Like it's like 2020, you know, we got to try new things sometimes. And that thing could be just a beast for off-roading. Certain jobs, it could be very great with the technology built in. But of course, charging, I mean, the charging infrastructure is getting better. I can see that still being a problem with people. Trucks, they need them to go to do things right away. If it's not fully charging, you have to wait a bit. That could be big money. So again, I think it's more geared towards the enthusiasts and a target market, which it might do very well in. So time will tell. I'm still kind of waving back and forth on this, but I think I made up my mind that it's going to do very well in its own right. It's not going to challenge the big three, but I think it's going to do a lot better than a lot of people think. And I applaud Tesla for at least taking a risk. That's going to be it for today, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.